Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice Radio. We are live on FM and AM and on our website, aneighborschoice.com. Make sure you go there and put your email in for our weekly email content update, as well as remember to email me hello@aneighborschoice.com to stay in touch as we transition to an online-only format starting on March 1st of this year. Joining me now is a good friend of the program who's great for understanding foreign affairs. He's a veteran of the CIA, and he's a bona fide son of the American revolutionaries, Larry Johnson. How you doing?
I'm great, Dave. How are you?
We're doing great. You know, you've got this blog, sonar21.com, and your new post is called Russia's Declaration of Independence, a review of Putin's speech to Russia's National Assembly. Now, that's kind of provocative to compare it to the Declaration of Independence. I mean, Mike Pence was just saying on Sean Hannity's show last night that this is a continuation of our conflict with the Soviet Union and that they are trying to reconstitute the same ambitions that they had before against Reagan, and that we need to make sure that we let them know they cannot expand beyond Ukraine into other countries that Putin most assuredly wants to possess.
Yeah, it's total nonsense. Let's just deal with facts. How many countries, when the Soviet Union was constituted, how many countries did they launch military invasions in after World War II? They went into Hungary and Czechoslovakia to put down some uprisings, and then into Poland. That's 3.
Uh-huh.
How many countries has the United States invaded and carried out military operations? Well, we got Grenada, we got Panama, we got Iraq twice, we got Syria, we've got Afghanistan, we've got countries in Africa, Somalia. So in terms of the strict definition of an imperial power, the United States is doing what's called psychological projection. We're projecting onto the Russians the very thing that we're doing. We are the ones that have been out with expeditionary forces killing people in other countries. Always in the name of democracy, we always come up with a good excuse for it. But what Putin did in his speech yesterday, it very much parallels, if you go back and read the Declaration of Independence, after the opening of all men are created equal, we hold these truths to be self-evident. After that opening preamble, Thomas Jefferson then proceeded to lay out what I'd call a criminal indictment of the United Kingdom and of King George for what they've done to the American colonists that was laying the predicate, the rationale for our rebellion against the United Kingdom. Well, that's exactly what Putin does. Putin goes through, in this case, he's not rebelling against the United Kingdom. He's basically laying out the case for why Russia is at war, not just in Ukraine, but that it is at war with the United States and NATO. Made that point very clear.
Right.
And he details specifically what the United States is doing. Can you imagine how we would react if we were fighting in Mexico and the Russian government was providing advanced weaponry and ammunition and artillery shells and equipment to the Mexicans? Do you think we'd have a problem with that? Well, of course we would. Well, that's exactly what we're doing in Ukraine. Now, but then Putin went off after having laid out that the predicates. He then makes it very clear that this has now changed. We're in a fundamental new era with respect to his relationship to the United States and to NATO. He no longer sees it as a potential for peace. There's no foundation for working together in a collaborative fashion. Instead, he said that if the West provides more advanced military equipment that will allow further distance attacks inside Russia, then Russia will be compelled to move farther west, which means originally I think their plan was just to stop short at the Dnieper River. Now it looks like they're going to go all the way to the Polish border. Now, this notion that Russia is some sort of communist state is just absolutely ridiculous. It's just not true. It's a lie. And any American politician or military person that repeats it is showing themselves to be an ignorant moron. It is absolutely not true. The Communist Party does still exist in Russia, but it's a minority party. It does not hold the majority of the seats by any stretch in the Russian parliament. They have both an upper house and a lower house. So, but at the same time,
why does someone like a Mike Pence and Sean Hannity say every night this was an unprovoked attack by Russia on Ukraine?
Because they don't know history. They haven't paid attention to what was going on.
But he was the vice president of the United States. He didn't have any history?
No. I mean, when the events unfolded in 2014, when the United States, with Victoria Nuland, while Barack Obama was president and Joe Biden was vice president, and Joe Biden was already setting up his lucrative deals in Ukraine, we orchestrated with the United Kingdom a coup that ousted a duly democratically elected president, Yanukovych, in Ukraine. He was ousted, forced out illegally. And then the person that we, United States, put in place, remember there was the Russians released a phone intercept of Victoria Nuland on the phone with the U.S. Ambassador Jeffrey Priot at the time, laying out in detail that we don't want Klitschko, we want this Yats. They call the guy Yats. We were running the show, and that new legislature that came in immediately banned the use of Russian language in the Donbass, those two provinces, Donetsk and Luhansk, and then they launched an attack upon the Russian population in Odessa, and killed hundreds. So they set one of the ministry buildings on fire, and people were literally jumping to their deaths on fire from that. So in response to that, the militia in the Donbass rose up and started fighting, and they kept the Ukrainian army at bay for the last 8 years. So what did the United States do? Putin came in and said, "Look, I want to guarantee that NATO is not going to expand further east, that it's not going to make Ukraine part of NATO, and that you will respect the Minsk Accords, which were negotiated." Well, we now know that both Angela Merkel and the French President Hollande, they lied, absolutely lied about the Minsk agreement. It was just it was a sham. It wasn't legit. They just used it to buy time for Ukraine. At the same time, the Ukrainian, prior to Putin launching the invasion on February 24th last year, Ukraine was massing military force and stepping up its artillery barrage because they were going to launch a preemptive strike into the Donbass to try to eliminate them once and for all. And Putin beat him to the punch. So this was absolutely provoked. Putin submitted a peace proposal and a negotiated proposal, or a proposal for a negotiated settlement in December, totally rejected by the Biden administration, completely, utterly rejected. Mm-hmm. So, if Sean Hannity and Mike Pence want to get their uniform on and go over there and fight, God bless them, go for it, guys.
But you know what's so diabolical? Yeah, I'm sick of it too. And you know what's so diabolical about it is that, I was listening. I rarely ever watch, Hannity and all that stuff, but for some reason it was on at somebody's house, and I'm watching this, and it's got right after that segment where Mike Pence is talking this big holier-than-thou attitude about why we've got an unprovoked attack against Ukraine, and I'm just trying to do what the Lord would want me to do. And then you listen to this guy, and I'm going to pray about whether I should run for president. And then the next segment, Hannity's got this segment with a reporter on the scene at a revival of young kids. I'm not sure what state it was, some university or some college, where these young Generation Z are sweeping up and cleaning their life up and finding God's presence in the midst of the darkness. And, you could see Hannity choking up a little bit about it in the reporter. And I'm thinking to myself, this is so diabolical, because there are millions of people who get that same, vibe with Hannity. Oh, wow, look at the youth. And then they think I should be able to listen to these people. And so they trust them when these Mike Pences and these Hannitys lie them into these diabolical wars. It's just disgraceful. Yeah. I hate it.
Well, let me read you something, and you tell me who you think said this. They never stop, I'm quoting now, they never stop lying and distorting historical facts as they attack our culture and other traditional religious organizations in our country. Look what they are doing to their own people. It is all about the destruction of the family, of cultural and national identity, perversion and abuse of children, including pedophilia, all of which are declared normal in their life. They are forcing the priests to bless same-sex marriages. Bless their hearts. Let them do as they please. Here is what I would like to say in this regard. Adult people can do as they please. We have always seen it that way and always will. No one is going to intrude into other people's private lives, and we are not going to do it either. But here is what I would like to tell them. Look at the Holy Scripture and the main books of the other world religions. They say it all, including that family is the union of a man and woman, but these sacred texts are now being questioned. Reportedly, the Anglican Church is planning to explore the idea of a gender-neutral God. What is there to say? Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Who do you think said that?
Well, I kind of have the cheat sheet. I saw that yesterday. It'd be Putin, right?
That was in Vladimir Putin's speech.
Yeah.
Now, as last I checked, that sounded like a conservative speaking.
Yeah.
That sounded like somebody who actually believes in God speaking. So when you get people with Mike Pence and his ignorance that think that is just something contrived and made up by Vladimir Putin, is absolutely that's the evil of this. The evil of this is that America is continuing to use its military force to threaten other people and to try to coerce other nations to do what we want to do. The reason we want Russia is because Russia is vastly, vastly rich with natural resources that we need and don't have.
Do we actually need those resources?
Oh, absolutely.
What resources do they have that we don't have?
Enriched uranium. They provide 40% of enriched uranium to the world. And I think it accounts for like 60% of the uranium in this country.
Hmm. So, speaking of uranium, we just
other rare earth minerals. They also are responsible the largest supply of nickel. That's important as well, and producing. There are a big kick on the electric vehicles. So, it's just we have deliberately picked a fight with Russia that we're going to lose because at the same time that Putin was making that speech, the U.S. ambassador was called to the Russian foreign ministry, and she was told in no uncertain terms that the United States should withdraw its military personnel from Ukraine, or they will become legitimate targets, and the Russians are prepared to kill them and destroy it. And that's the first time that Russia has issued such a warning since the start of the special military operation last February.
You mentioned
we need to take that seriously because they're going to do it.
How soon are they going to do that? Like tomorrow? What's the window here? They're going to start killing.
It'll happen. It'll start happening probably within the next 2 weeks.
What about listeners asking you about the START suspension, this treaty that was suspended, the nuclear treaty?
Yeah. Well, first, let's get the order right. Back in 2001, George W. Bush withdrew from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Defense Treaty. That treaty limited countries from developing anti-ballistic missile defense systems. The United States unilaterally withdrew from that. Russia said, hey, don't do it. We did it. Russia has gone ahead and now developed actually anti-ballistic missile defense systems. The United States has not. So we're vulnerable on that front. Then Donald Trump He withdrew from the International Nuclear Forces Agreement, which imposed limits upon the kinds of nuclear forces that could be deployed and tried to reduce those. Again, the United States unilaterally withdrew from that. So what Putin signaled yesterday is we're going to suspend our participation. You do not get to come inspect our facilities. They just notified us last week that they are going to be testing a new intercontinental ballistic missile. So they left the door open that the negotiations for the New START 2 could be reopened, but it's going to be done on Russia's terms. Russia is tired of being exploited by the United States. That's basically what Putin said in his speech, one of the key things he said. So this is, it's just a further sign that the world is sliding closer and closer to a nuclear war. And if in the event that happens, and I pray that it does not, it is the United States that's going to lose. Because the Russians right now, they are upgrading and outfitting their defense shelters throughout the country. I mean, they've got massive underground facilities built and constructed to protect the population that are stocked with food, water, and medicine. The United States has no such thing. The Russians have a ballistic missile defense system that can defeat our missiles that would be carrying nuclear warheads, which means whatever we'd fire at them is not likely to land on target and not likely to kill as many Russians or destroy as much of Russia as we would like. By contrast, the Russians have full access to us. So, I mean, I think they're trying to do everything in their power to avoid that kind of confrontation. And look at what has now happened just in the last 24 hours. The Chinese have announced that they're going to be basically in a security relationship with Russia. That's why Xi is going to travel to Russia either in March or April. And at that time, I fully expect that Russia and China will sign a mutual defense pact. This destroys the foundation of American foreign policy since Richard Nixon went to China in 1972 to solidify a deal to try to keep China and Russia separate. Did all in his power to set Russia and China against each other. That has now collapsed. That policy that's 50 years old is now dead. China and Russia are working very closely together. It was sort of amusing that Blinken warned the Chinese not to send any weapons to Russia. Number one, Russia doesn't need Chinese weapons. It's going to be just the opposite. Russia should be sending stuff to China. But the fact that the United States can sit there and try to tell the Chinese what to do and not do with Russia, while we are sitting there sending weapons to Ukraine and other countries around the world. But Biden has achieved the complete destruction of American leadership on the foreign front. No longer are we trusted in the Middle East. The Saudis have basically decided to side with the Russians. We're no longer trusted in Southeast Asia. We have no backing with India, with Pakistan, with Afghanistan. So despite the claims of Biden that Russia is becoming isolated, it's just the opposite. It's the United States that's becoming isolated.
Wow. Yeah. What about India? Now, India has been, doing more with Russia, but yet India has the issues with China. How is that going to resolve with that trifecta?
Well, they're figuring out a way to work together. That's what's interesting about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you remember, India actually has a long relationship with Russia, going back to the days of the Soviet Union. I know this. My wife, when she was in college in the fall of, I guess it was January of 1973, she traveled to India as part of a winter term program with her college. She stayed with the family of Bandura Shastri. Bandura Shastri had been the prime minister of India, and he had died the previous year of a heart attack while on a visit to Russia and the Soviet Union. And so there was, the Soviets, took steps to deal with the grieving family and expressing their regrets and all. But it, definitely was. They've had that relationship with the Russians and the Soviets going back well over 50 years.
Very interesting. Larry, it's always great having you on the program. Any last thoughts or anything you'd like to plug while we have you?
Well, if you believe in prayer, now's a good time to do it, because we are in as dangerous a situation as I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm 68 years old. This is downright frightening, what we're about to embark on. The real possibility, at a minimum, that conventional missiles are going to strike the United States because of what we do over in Ukraine against the Russians. Russia will not, they will strike back, and we don't have any way to stop it.
And, it's a disturbing thing to think that this has come down to this, and yet, what is there, only 10 Republicans led by Matt Gaetz and Anna Paulina Luna, who's in the district that we're in this radio broadcast. A lot of this area is covered by her district, and that's the only ones they can get is 10 people in the Republican House to speak against this war. I don't understand it.
Yeah, you saw what they did to Donald Trump, because if any attempt to talk to the Russians and to have a proper relationship with Russia, you're accused of being a covert communist and a puppet of Putin. And so we're killing ourselves. We're doing it to ourselves. We find that modern-day Russia would be actually our best friend in the world in terms of traditional American values, because they want to preserve the family, they want to stop drug abuse, and they're very strong nationalists. They put Russia first, just as Donald Trump said, America first.
Well, may God intervene and stop these mad, insane people from their hell-bent ways. It's pretty diabolical. So thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry, for joining us. It's always great having you on. I wish it was more positive news, but it's great to have folks that shoot straight when you have these scary times. So check out sonar21.com to read Larry Johnson's blog, sonar21.com. Thanks again. So that's it for hour one of our broadcast, folks. It's great to have you with us. We're going to continue in just a moment with hour two. So stay tuned. More guests coming and more topics, more news headlines, and you won't want to miss that. In the meantime, I'm going to do a little more housekeeping. As of March 1st of next month, we won't be on this radio station anymore, so I want you to stay tuned. Go to aneighborschoice.com, put your email in on the home page so you can get our weekly content update. Also, email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. As well, while we're on radio, we will be back in just a moment for hour two today. So if you have thoughts on what CIA veteran Larry Johnson just said in response to what's going on in Russia and the Ukraine conflict, if you'd like to let your voice be heard, you can dial in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040 to call in with your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you think Mike Pence and Sean Hannity are right? That this was an unprovoked aggression by Putin, and we just need to double down with more lethal weaponry over there to further the carnage? Is that what a Christian does? Or is that what a false Christian does? Is Larry Johnson right that we have to bring this to a resolution quickly before we have nuclear annihilation? Weigh in with your thoughts at 727-587-1040 and email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.